So my friends, welcome to episode number 12 of Breakfast with Sergio, and today I want to talk about how to adhere large sheets of paper on canvas for a nice and flat surface. Super easy, super cool, something I've been doing now for over 16 years with great results, and artists always ask me how I do it, so today I'm going to tell you how I do it. So again, friends, welcome to Breakfast with Sergio. This is episode number 12. I want to talk about, again, how I adhere large sheets of paper into canvas for a nice flat surface, because that's how I make my work. And those of you who have seen my work before, and if you've seen it close enough, you know that most of my paintings are actually done on paper. And then the paper is adhered to canvas and it's not stretched. It's actually super flat on the wall. And it looks beautiful. I leave a 2-inch white border all around, and there's no stretchers. This allows me to create really large paintings and roll them up, and I can send a whole entire show in one, big tube or box anywhere in the world, super easy. And I want to tell you today how I do that. So again, thanks for joining me for breakfast. Today for breakfast, I have mini French toast, which I made, mini French toast, and in the mix I also put like mashed strawberries in the mix that I did for my French toast. So it's they have a little bit of a strawberry flavor, has a little bit of cinnamon on top, a little bit of whipped cream, and like nuts and almonds and walnuts and things like that. So super good, super good. I actually already started eating breakfast right before you joined me today. But again, for those of you who know my work, you've seen the large, a typical work of mine is the size of a person. They're quite large, about between 42 to 52 inches wide, by about 5 or 6 feet tall, depending on how I want them. And I have even made some that are 12 feet tall. That's my tallest piece I've ever done. And the technique is very simple. First, you need the canvas, which needs to be prime. You need to prime your canvas. You need to gesso your canvas really well. I would recommend 2 coats, and for this I would recommend take the piece of canvas, staple it to the wall, and then gesso it. Now in my case, since this is something I do all the time, I buy my canvas already pre-gesso, so it's easy for me to then glue the large sheets of paper. Then I buy paper by the roll as well, and my favorite paper to use is a STONEHENGE. You want a paper that's heavy enough so that it doesn't wrinkle too much on one side. The whole thing about the paper and the canvas is that each one is pulling, so you want it to kind of have a very similar pull from both sides, so that the canvas doesn't pull one way too much or the paper the other way, and that's what causes the paper to buckle. You want it to be nice and flat. So this is how I adhere my paper, large sheets of paper, to canvas, and it gives you a very beautiful surface. So what you need is canvas that's gesso, right? And you can do it yourself, or you can buy the canvas pre-gesso. And you can I recommend test it in a small scale first before you go in and try to do a really large piece. And some of my pieces are quite large as well. And I have done this also not only with big sheets of paper. I use the same technique if I use the smaller sheets of paper all tiled up over the surface of the canvas. So once you have the canvas nice and prime and you have the paper, you also what you want to do is you can paint on the paper first if you want, or draw on it first and then adhere it, or you can adhere first and then draw over it. It's up to you. I have done it both ways. It works the same both ways. So once the canvas is nice and flat, after you have pre-stretched it, I recommend either you do this on the floor if it's a large piece, or on the wall. So you can staple the canvas to the wall, or you can do this on the floor flat. And all you need then is 2 things. You need a bucket or a good quantity of gel medium, acrylic gel medium. That's a really wonderful adhesive. Acrylic gel medium, it works great. It's flexible. It never cracks. And then you can roll up your pieces and send them, ship them anywhere. And then when they're ready to be installed, I always recommend the installer just leave it flat for a few hours, and then the paper and the canvas will relax to a nice, beautiful surface. That's how I do my work. So all you need is the acrylic gel medium. So what you do with the acrylic gel medium, and then you need a white brush. Get a white brush. I don't recommend using a roller. I prefer a white brush. Then you want to put the canvas on the floor. Start with a section and work your way from top to bottom. Of course, it's in the floor. It doesn't matter which way is top or which way is bottom. You start from one side to the other, right? And what I normally do is I glue about 1.5 feet at a time. So I take the brush, dry. You don't want to wet. You don't want to add more moisture to the acrylic gel medium. Just dip the dry brush on it and put a nice coat on the canvas, on the floor, and then roll the paper and start, applying it flat over the surface. Do one section at a time. And then what I recommend you to get is the second thing you need besides the glue, the adhesive. Also get a roller, one of those printmaker rollers, the ones that they use for printmaking. Those are great because you can put a lot of pressure into those, and that's what you'll use to pull all the air pockets. And you do this starting from one section, about 1.5 feet. Do that section really well, and then immediately do the next another 1.5 feet, and then work your way all the way through until you finish kind of gluing the whole paper. I recommend your canvas to be bigger than the paper, so that later then you'll trim it to whatever size you want. And I recommend always trim a little bit of the paper too, so you get a perfect edge all around, and it works beautiful. I've done this for 16 years. I have perfected the technique. At the beginning, either the paper would wrinkle or the canvas would wrinkle. Now it just works great. As long as you do it on a huge flat surface like the floor, works perfect. And another thing I recommend is once you have it all done, you want to spend another half hour or so just rolling over the canvas. Or what I do too is, like, because I do it on the floor for a large piece, I just walk over it. I take my shoes off and just walk over the whole piece for about half hour. As I'm doing something, maybe listening to a podcast or what have you, just walking through the piece to make sure that the bond is really great. If you glue it and then you leave it and then you go somewhere and you come back, you'll find wrinkles or air pockets that will create if you don't keep putting that pressure. So you want to give yourself plenty of time. Don't do this on a rush if you have to go somewhere, because it might not work well for you. So and that's how you adhere a large piece of paper on a canvas, and it will be absolutely beautiful, perfectly flat once you are done. Again, make sure it's a heavy enough paper. I recommend STONEHENGE, beautiful paper to work with. And then once it's done, you trim it. And what I do is I put rings on each corner so it hangs like a banner, and then I can paint over it. Or sometimes I paint it before I mount it. It doesn't matter what you do with it after, before or after, it works the same. Sometimes I paint after it, and it just works just fine. Most of the time I do the painting first and then I glue it after. So that's the last thing I have to do, usually before a deadline that I have to send it to a show or what have you. Now, when you ship it, you don't want to roll them too tight. That's the key too. You don't want to over tighten them. I pretty much make them round about a foot diameter when you roll these pieces to ship anywhere. So put it in a tube. They have those big tubes, and just do it right there. And give the instructions, like before they hang it, to put it flat on the floor for about 3-4 hours. And the paper and the canvas will just relax really beautiful. Again, this works really great. I've done this for many years. I ship shows around the world just with this same technique, and they all go together and they always look wonderful. And it's a great way. Now, as far as you might wonder, okay, how about collectors? How do you sell it to a collector who might want the piece? Well, I give them 3 options, and the options are they can hang it as is, just from the D-rings, which looks beautiful too, or because they're super flat, or I can have them mounted on plywood. All they do is they'll remove the D-rings and mount it to plywood. That way they can frame it if they want. And the other option, the third option, is to create kind of a box around the work. So it's a wood box, and then the piece just sits right in the center. All three options look beautiful. Depends on what the collector might want to do. And I have collectors who have, done either of those three. I have collectors who have big pieces just hanging with the adhere rings, and they look beautiful. They love it the way they are, and it's just great. So that's what you want to do. Oh, also, you should, once you are ready to paint or work on the paper, you should gesso it too, just for additional protection. You gesso the paper too. I work with acrylic, so I gesso the painting. I mean the surface of the paper usually. Then I work on it, and then at the end I give it usually another coat of acrylic gel medium. So that's how you can do it, my friend. It works great. So if you try it, let me know. I would love to hear your experience working with paper, adhering it to canvas. And again, I wanted to do this because a lot of artists ask me whenever I have a show, they ask me, so what do you use? How do you make it so flat and look so great, and your paper doesn't buckle or wrinkle or those weird things? So, and that's how I do it, my friends. So now you have the recipe. You can try it, and let me know how you like it. So thanks again for joining me for Breakfast with Sergio, episode number 12. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm going to go back here to my breakfast and start my day as well. Thanks for joining, and let me know what you're having for breakfast as well. Take care. Bye.